Well, hello and welcome to the Living Life with Wendy podcast. Today I have joining me Cassie Saquing, money mindset and business management coach. Cassie helps business owners kill the hustle and make a profit. She's a soul-centered financial and money mindset coach, a mom of four, and a dedicated wife. In her early days, she took her expertise in education and transformed it to a seven-figure daycare business. Now she teaches other women to scale their mindset and their income. Welcome to today's episode, Cassie.
Hey there, friends, and welcome to Living Life with Wendy, the podcast that's all about personal development, mindset, leadership, and business growth, but like in a totally relatable and casual way. I'm Wendy, your host and personal development guru. Well, at least that's what my friends call me. And in each episode, I'll be chatting with experts in the field, sharing my own experiences, and giving you tips and strategies for success that you can actually use in your everyday life. So whether you're looking to improve yourself, climb the corporate ladder, start your own business, or get out of your own way, we've got you covered. So grab a seat, put your feet up, and let's chat about how to live your best life together.
Tell us about your journey, right? How did you get to where you are today in your business as a money mindset and business management coach?
Oh gosh, I love that question. And I feel like every time I go into a panic when someone asks me, because it is so convoluted and not a straight line at all. And I believe for many women, we have that experience, right? There are some things where we wind up, being home with our kids or having different seasons of life that are really experiential. So for me, I, graduated from college with an education degree. I didn't go right into teaching. I got married really young, and then we started having children. And so that became really my focus. Although I really love education, I love the process of teaching. I love the process of learning and breaking it down. And that's just part of who I am. And I kind of need that for myself too. And so, then we wound up, my husband has been a minister for almost 30 years. He's now retired, but that was really the focus of our family. And so we wound up having four children. I did do some childcare in my home. I kind of created a home childcare business. And then our church was actually looking to start a daycare officially, like formally, like legally through the state and everything. So, I put my hand up for that and was really excited. And then, it started out as part of underneath the church umbrella legally. And then it wound up where the church just wasn't able to really manage a business. So I brought on a business partner who was one of my teachers because we're both moms. I was like, I can't do this alone. And we wound up purchasing the business from the church and then turning it into a for-profit business about 4 years into it. And that was, back in 2009. So we started in 2005 and then went to for-profit in 2009, and we were still operating and, I've scaled it since then. And definitely found as I was, doing the education piece and loving that and working with kids, I found that I loved the systems and processes side. And then figuring out the money, my business partner and I are teachers. We don't know what the heck we're doing. We'll figure this out. And so we really worked hard on that. And that's where I've come to the businesses in the multiple millions now. We have 120 kids. We have 40 staff members. And we've remained non-corporate on purpose so that it's just a very cozy, home-like family feel. And that was very intentional on our part. And we plan to keep running it that way. And we love our team. We have a wonderful, director, assistant director, and teaching staff and support staff. So that's kind of my journey with that. While I'm raising my kids, I'm bringing them with me and I'm doing all the things and learning the hard way, along the way. But I have found a lot of solutions to things along the way. And that's what I love to share with other women in business, especially with my clients.
I love that specifically because I think that is a big learning curve for many entrepreneurs. And if my listeners don't know, or if they didn't hear your introduction, I mean, you have a seven-figure business. This is not small potatoes. So, can you share with my listeners really how do you transition from that journey when you're scaling, right? Because sometimes there's fear of abundance. So that's part of the mindset. And there's also, well, how do you pay yourself, right? Because when you're beginning a business, it's all about pouring back into the business. So I don't know if any listeners are new entrepreneurs, but when you do your taxes at the end of the year or at the beginning of the next year, it's kind of like shopping about how much money you really don't make once you like run through all your expenses, right?
Yes.
So how do you make that mindset shift? That's the first question. And specifically about how to scale and pay yourself. And so we'll start there. I think that's really important.
Awesome. I love that. And I really, honestly, I'll say, to be super real, it takes years to build a real business that is sustainable and long term and going to, basically run itself in the future. I want to put that out there. I know on a lot of social media platforms, there's just a lot of quick wins. And I get that. Just like, quick snapshots of something. And they're not like the real full story. And that's why I love talking with you on the podcast. But to answer your question about mindset shift, in the beginning, I was very controlling of every detail because that's what I knew. As a teacher, that's my mindset. I'm going to have my hand in every pot. I'm going to, know every outcome. I'm going to make this white glove service for the parents. It was a daycare that we started. And so I was so hyper focused on controlling because that's what worked for me in the past, that I really, really hit the burnout wall quickly, probably within a year. Although, if you're listening, you're an online coach or you have like an agency model, you can hit six figures on your own pretty quickly, right? Like that whole mindset can work. And I'm not denying it. It worked for me. But what happens is you start to it just multiplies the decisions, you hit decision fatigue every day. And usually it would take me about a week in the beginning to hit decision fatigue. And then by the time I was burning out, it took me till 9 a.m. and I was hitting the wall, And I think that especially if you have a service-based business, you have to be emotionally present. You have to show up. And so you have to shift your mindset from six figures to seven figures, which is kind of the generalized way to say you have to scale. You can still operate at six figures. You could probably just hire someone who's kind of, you in person and be your support staff and you can handle it. But you will be putting a lot of time and effort directly. It's all based on your direct work product, right? Your time. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. It's a swap. It really stinks. But if you love that and you want to stay in that space, I haven't found many women that I've coached as well who want to stay there. Yeah. You can do it. I would say about a year should be like the goal. And then you need to start, for me, the first step would be first changing your mindset about what it takes to scale. It's like, I'm going to have to let go. I'm going to have to release. But the good news is you can create, SOPs, systems and processes. You start process documenting. Then you can trust the system versus I see a lot of people like, do I trust this person? I don't want them to see the money. There's a lot of like mental freaking out moments for people trying to scale when really you should just be trusting the process and make a decision ahead of time so that when you find the right person, they fit into your process and you're not tailoring your six-figure business around somebody maybe you found in a Facebook group, right? You're saying, no, this is where I am. This is what I need. And be really gut check honest about that. And then you know how to move forward. And I always recommend that you find your mini me. It's like that person who can kind of replace you, who has a similar values, similar vision. They won't be you, but that's okay. Like that's the first person you make the connection with and start building that trust, building a system, getting them to copy what you do. I mean, nobody is you. Nobody is like, your magical system, your magical person and your energy, your aura. But at the same time, you can find someone that you can build into and build that trust. And that would be the first step. And that's a big mental shift. It sounds really easy. Oh, just find your mini me, It is a huge emotional process. And you also, the longer you stay in that kind of non-scaling mode, that initial building phase mode where you're just like handling everything, the harder it will be to release. And it will be kind of a grieving process because you're like, baby, I created this. Nobody can do it like I can. And I think that's really challenging. Like that is the biggest challenge I've found for people is like letting go, but not just letting go. I've seen people also let go 100% and then they don't know what's going on in their business. They have no control. They literally, it's like a pendulum. don't do that. Find the middle ground, start process, documentation, and then trust your system, create what you really want it to be, and then bring in the human that you feel like would be a good match. And it might take 2 to 3 people, and that's okay. You need
And
to
I
give
love,
yourself.
yeah, I love that you said that, Cassie, because I think that is the magic of scaling is creating SOPs, right? Operating procedures, because it creates a standard, right? It can be replicated. And like you said, once that's in place, it's important. And so from your experience, like from my experience, like build the SOP as you scale, right? Because it's kind of like you said, it is a very personal thing. It's like birthing a child when you have your own business. It really is. But you're learning along the way, right? So you're learning efficiencies, you're learning the processes that kind of can be repeated. So that's kind of what I advise people. But from your point of view, what would you advise people when they're building those processes?
I think it's really simple. If you look at what daily decisions are you making on repeat, and then write it down, and then take a look at it and say, does it fall under finances? Does it fall under marketing? Does it fall under operations? Just start to sort. And, I always recommend do Monday through Friday. Just write down everything you do for a couple weeks straight, and then start to gather what is, redundant or replicate or on repeat. That's the best thing. And like, don't just sit back and try to do it without actually documenting yourself in action, because we forget what we do every single day. Like, we just do it on autopilot, and then we're like, wait, what did I do? And then also for things that you might make a category that says like decisions that are really important to me, because what happens, I see also, and I've done this myself, you hire someone and then you don't give them the freedom to make choices. So they're coming to you for everything anyway. And you start to get discouraged because you feel, gosh, why did I even hire this person? I might as well do it myself. It's like the mom who doesn't teach their kids to pick up their laundry. They just go in the room and clean it up because it's quicker. And so you don't want to become that person. You want to say, no, I want to empower them to make choices and decisions, create decisions that are important to you that you want to hold on to. But then what can you start kind of shifting over to their plate so they don't have to contact you for every little thing?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and they have clear direction of what's expected, right? Because I think I've experienced that too with entrepreneurs who are just starting to hire like assistants. It's like they feel like it's more work every day just to figure out what to delegate. So if you have the processes, it kind of starts to steer the direction of where that person can like fall into your organization to really help you, right? Because the whole point of that shift in scaling as a leader, you want to be doing less as far as the, working in the business and doing more of working on the business.
Yes. And I find a lot of people will say, I can't talk about my process. It's very special and nobody else can do it. And I can't write it down. And so that is a learned skill. And that's something you really need to start doing before you hire. Otherwise, your business will take on their personality, especially if you find someone who may be as controlling as you, which you kind of do want, right? You want someone strong. You want someone in charge. You want somebody to be able to be decisive. So yeah, I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. I love that. And, it's so interesting because, as I'm listening to you and the listeners are probably going, wow, like Cassie must have a business degree. And you said your degree was in education. So obviously, like it's a learning curve, right? So tell us a little bit about, what were the quick wins for you and what were the struggles? Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs come into that, into a business. Well, I'm going to speak to coaches specifically, where we come into coaching because we want to help people. And then when we get into put that business cap on, it's like navigating, a whole new world. And it's really difficult for many, many people that are in the service industry. So how did you, like I said, like what were the quick wins for you? And what were the struggles as you transition from, being the doer into being a business owner?
I think that's a really great question. I love it. I think my quick wins are that people trust me very quickly. I do live in a very intense part of the world, Northeast New Jersey. I'm right outside New York City. People are pretty intense here. I'm from Michigan, from the Midwest. So I'm very like, but I'm also very strong. Like I'll say no, but I'll be like smiling at you, but it really means no. Like it's not going to happen, right? So I think right away there's something about my personality where, and I was a pastor's wife, of course. Like that's just me. I'm a teacher. I'm a nurturer. Like
Mm.
that is just part of who I am, and I've come to accept that. So that's a quick win. And when you're in the business of helping raise children, helping teach children, you are a nurturer, and that your trust is your only currency, right? Like
Mm.
they'll pay you $1 million if they trust you. And that is a whole nother conversation. But I think those quick wins were that parents trusted me immediately. And I knew everything about their lives. I knew where they worked, what they did, their history, their child, their sleeping patterns. Like I'm that person who like wants to know everything, and then I can help support better. And so I think for me, that was a quick win. I don't see every daycare or service-based business owner being that way, and that's okay, but it kind of set us apart. It was definitely a key differentiator for our business. Some of the challenging things that really took me a long time, I'll be forgiving toward myself. Normally, I'd like to say that was ridiculous. Why did it take me so long? But it took me longer just because my mindset was not, I just thought, oh, you take cash in, you put it in the bank, you pay people. Like, I just was oversimplifying the business aspect and learning QuickBooks, learning how to balance the budget, how to create a spending plan, how to manage cash flow was
Mm.
huge because, you get paid and some people are behind. Obviously, if everyone pays on the right date and on time, we're fine. But then what happens when you're going below? How do you put money aside for the business? How do you pay yourself first? That's huge. So I think some of those things, like my business partner and I, when we went, for profit, we were like, where's all the money going? Like, we
Mm.
know we're not stealing. Nobody's stealing money. Like, nothing's wrong. We're not doing anything bad. We're putting it into the business. And we really got sucked into that mentality of like, revenue minus expenses equals profit. We'll take home the leftovers. And
Mm.
that really started to hurt us. We had families, we had things we needed to cover, and we also had business, big expenses that would pop up. We're like, how do we even save money for the business? It was really challenging. So I think, for me, and that's why I focus on the money, management and cash flows, because that was my biggest challenge. I could manage schedules, we're kind of taught that in school, in terms of educators, and this is how you manage people and, love on people. But the admin part and the money part was really challenging. Like, are we going to make payroll and why not? Or why, trying to pay people a living wage that's equitable and fair, especially for what they do all day. And, I'm proud to say, we do give our staff, benefits and all those things that are really important to us as business owners and female business owners. Those were our biggest challenges, and we really finally overcame them. But it really took until about 2015 to do that. So
Mm.
it took a while. We were suffering for a little bit. Yeah.
Well, and I think you made a good point, because I think as female business owners, we approach business a different way, right? Because like you said, many of us are mothers or nurturers or teachers, or, there's a bit of a mindset when you're female that is in the majority. Kind of, we approach things differently, right? And it kind of is the same in the service industry. And it's that shifting that mindset that it's okay to be business focused, and, and our mindset around money, right? Because there's this kind of guilt about charging for our services and what is the right price. So how did you kind of overcome that? Because I think that's one of the things that, in your field of expertise of coaching that mindset around money. So, what advice would you give my listeners when it comes to, how we approach, specifically as females, our money mindset?
Yes, absolutely. And I know you probably have a lot of coaching pointers in this too, Wendy. So feel free to jump in. But I think, the main thing is that we ask ourselves, do I deserve this? And that's
Mm.
really not the right question. The question is like, can anyone else in my company or my business do what I do? And I will tell you the answer 100% of the time is no. So already your skill set is at a different level than the people you may be hiring under you, and that's okay. And that doesn't mean you're authoritarian, that you're a slave driver, all those things. You can still be generous. But if your cup isn't full, i.e., making the money, making sure you're covering your own expenses, whatever those are, you're not going to be able to give out of that overflow to others. And you're always going to feel that resentment. So I would say, do I want to resent my staff or no? If I don't want to, then I need to pay myself first. And understanding that my skill set is in a different space and place than everyone else on my team. And they're looking to me for leadership. And leaders need more. We need more thinking time. We need more space to take that time to really be the visionary of our company and to look ahead so that we're not going to hit an iceberg when we're not looking, because we've all got our heads down and we're so busy doing. We never look up to see what's next. And those people that you hire are not paid to see what's next. They're paid to do what you need them to do. So the machine, i.e. operations, moves forward. And then you can be looking on to the future of what your ultimate goals are for the company. And they've signed on with you for a reason, So to me, I kind of walk through that a little bit, even with myself sometimes. And, I'd never handled $1 million before. I was like, whoa, I'm from the cornfields of Michigan. I don't know what to do with this money. I'm kind of get scared me. So a lot of us have these mindsets of fear, or that, money's evil, all these like old fashioned, I would say generational mindsets that even if we fight it, we subtly have it in our DNA somehow. Right? So we'll start to have fear around money, panic. If we've had a bad experience with like not being able to pay taxes, we have a lot of fear around money, a lot of fear around cash flow. And there is a difference between revenue and cash flow, right? So I think a lot of times we're like, well, my accountant tells me to do this. And yes, I get that. But that's one piece. That's just the overall budget. That's where the money goes, like in terms of just, classifying in your QuickBooks, that's like basic. That's actually like a history report.
Yeah.
This is telling you what happened yesterday or 10 months ago, whatever. But cash flow is like being proactive and moving your money in such a way that you have a real feeling around what you have to spend for your operations. And that includes marketing, all these things that you have to be doing to make the business work, the cost of doing business. A lot of people don't even have a list of like what their bills are for the month, things that are so simple, not to know like where you land financially. And then also we tend to keep all our money in one main pot, like, oh, this is the income account or the operating account, whatever you want to call it. And we tend as humans, like even on your own personal business account, or your personal account, you look and you're like, oh, how much do I have to spend? And what's available, we treat it like a credit card. Well, that's available, so I can just spend, we have these like subconscious thoughts. So my thing is to work along with that. So what we do is take the money in, revenue, and then we move it around so that when we look at that pot, what's remaining, that's an actual number. That's actually what's available. And I think that's super important to stop fighting our human nature and just feeling like we're failures all the time. And just start moving the money where we want it. It feels really good to make it move around and be like, oh, look how much I have for savings. And, we do a really simple system, but we also keep it like there are other systems out there similar, but they're quite extensive. And I've done them, but they're also like the normal human doesn't have time for all that. So mine is simplified, and I've tested it on the business for years now, since 2015. And I think for women, it works better. Like with my women clients, it's just like, that makes so much sense. I can do that. It takes like an hour a week to manage. And I've noticed like I used it when we were, below $1 million, and now it's like over 2. And now we're like, oh, it still works, because it's so simple. And I just don't even want to change it. I guess unless we became like a shell company and created all these multiple LLCs, that might be different. But for right now, even then, I would still integrate it into each LLC. So we need to stop fighting our human nature and go along with it, like work with ourselves and say, this is how I operate and it's okay. Like, I don't have to be corporate. I don't have to have that mentality. And a lot of times, women in business will think like, I've got to be like my old corporate self, or this is how I need to structure my business. And I just want to remind everyone, your business is there to serve you and your needs so that you can pour into others. Like, make it simple, make it easy. You don't have to be an accountant or have an MBA to do this. It's so easy. And suddenly you're going to start getting a real snapshot every single day of what you have available for the business. And then you start making different decisions. Your behavior changes because you realize either how little money you have in the operating account left.
Right.
And then, or how much you need to make. You start focusing on revenue more. Obviously, it's your job as visionary to bring revenue into the business. That is your main task, right? But then beyond that, to understand, like, yes, we can do zero-based budgets. I believe in all that, but those are really fake numbers, right? Those are like, oh, what we want it to be. But in the everyday world of running especially service-based coaching business, how do you make those everyday decisions? And money isn't the only filter, but how do you really make a really clear, quick snapshot decision? Money is the starting point because that's what's going to fuel the fire for this project or, this next thing you're doing. So that's kind of I know it's a long answer, but I do feel like it's all commingled together in our businesses. And we have, as a female, we see the whole picture at all times.
Yeah.
We don't always segment
So. But, I think you make a really good point. Again, as you were talking about that, is just about how we approach what ties us to our business. And you're right, it's more than just making money, but without making the income. And I think that's the mindset that needs to shift, is that if we're going to make a difference, because many of my clients, my female entrepreneur clients, they're in the business of making a difference, right? They've come from a servant leadership, mindset. And so they let the money actually scare them sometimes. It's like, it's this either, like you said, there's fear, right? There's fear of scarcity, but there's fear of abundance as well. Yes. And so they kind of like hold themselves back in really diving in. But to your point, Cassie, I know I'm all over the place too, but it starts with being smart and logical with your business, right? When it comes to the finances. And it's okay to put that hat on and not just always want to serve. Because, when you have that abundance, it gives you this ability to serve even more people, to make a bigger difference. Mm-hmm. And when you think of it from that point of view, then all of the fears of like doing more and asking more and, holding boundaries, because you did mention about holding boundaries earlier, it becomes so much easier. Right?
100%. I love that, Wendy. And that I feel like, and I know I've said this before, but I just can't say it enough. Like, the money brings favor, it brings visibility, and it brings influence. And it's not that we want money to I'm going to buy a second yacht. I don't think any of our clients are thinking that way right now. That's okay if you are, but I think that from that point of service and the heart, when we look at the world today, the wrong people are holding all the money, and they're because they are able to make decisions that we have no influence over. And I feel like if more good people, good-hearted people, kind people, loving people, philanthropic people that really want to give back, they want to serve, they want to make a difference, things that they can change with money, only with money, and have the influence because they have the money, because they're getting into different spaces to have different conversations and network differently. When you have more money, you garner more respect when you have money, for the right or wrong reasons. It's just the truth, right?
Yeah.
I'm on your podcast today because I have a multi-million-dollar business. If I didn't, would I be on here? That's part of it. That's part of who I am. And I'm proud of that fact. I'm super proud of that, but it took a team to get here, right? It's not just me. So I think that we need money in the right hands. That's all, the bottom line. Like, we need money in the hands of people who are really good-hearted and want to change the world, and not just say this blanket, I want to change the world, but start with their communities. And how can we make these changes? How can we change the laws in our country that are not helping underserved people in any way? Like, why, I'm in America. Why are there people starving in America? Things like that. You think, this is so unbalanced. And I think that's where our heart as mothers and caretakers and nurturers really needs to start to have influence, because people will respond differently, and we
Mm,
can change the world that way. So, and I know it sounds very idealistic, but I have realized I've gotten into different rooms because of my experience and because of the money I've made
yes.
and the way I handle money, right? So I want to encourage any listener. It's like, look, it's not about just a check mark on a report card. Oh, I hit 1 million. It used to be that for me. And I was like,
Mm,
well, no party. I don't see anybody like patting me on the back today. I hit 1 million. Okay, great. On to two. That's just a bottom line goal, but really it's to serve more clients. It's to help our community. It's to educate children. It's to give people jobs, like
mhm.
small business as well. It gives the most jobs to people. And, it's just a high
Absolutely.
percentage. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, it comes down to contribution, right? Like at the end of the day, as humans, we want to be able to make a difference. We want to contribute, especially to our community. We can't do that without money. I'm sorry, people. Like it's reality, right? You can volunteer time. Time is free, but you have to have that money to free up that time too, because it's, if you're not in abundance, then you're working more. Like that's how I feel anyway. And
Mhm.
so I think if you can tie it back to contribution and how we connect, because you said
Mm,
that too, like that's what differentiates you. You're a great connector, right? You make people feel safe and build trust.
mhm.
So I love that you pointed that out. And I think when we put that in front of us or top of mind, it can be a real catalyst for change in the way we approach our business.
Agree.
Hey there, podcast enthusiasts. Are you ready to take your listening experience to the next level? Be sure to join our community of engaged listeners by hitting that share button and subscribing to our podcast today. Share the love, spread the word, and hit that button to become part of our growing podcast family. Let's amplify our voices together. Thanks for tuning in, and let's get back to our episode.
You mentioned your money management system, right? So I want to talk about that because that is your area of expertise. Like this is where you can make a difference for other entrepreneurs. So first of all, let's talk about what's I'm sure it's called something, and I know it is called something. I just don't want to take that thunder away from you. And
You're so sweet.
and tell me more about how that money management system helps other people.
Mm. I it's called the profit stack system, and I really make it so simple. It's like literally stacking up your profits and understanding where your money is, where you want it to go, you decide. It's just a really simple way to manage money. And it also, what I find is people who don't know how to manage money are obsessed with it because they can't figure it out. So
Mm,
you're wasting like really important brain energy on this whole money management thing when really you should be focusing on the visionary part of your business, right? So my whole goal is to simplify, streamline, but also really, really explode the ability to pay yourself and explode your ability to save for the business's future, not just your personal savings, but for the business as well. And so with a profit stack system, it's basically kind of like you go into your business and you're kind of doing a quick audit. And I have a system for that. Like really, I just like to make things super easy. Here's a few spreadsheets, just fill these out, follow the steps one by one, and go from there. And then you go through and you decide where do I want my money to go? Here are some buckets. It's really easy. And then do this procedure and process every week. I do it every Saturday. I've been doing it since 2015. And I update my own QuickBooks. If you have a bookkeeper, you'd ask them to give you a weekly report and go through and just start tracking for yourself. And some of my clients, I had a doctor who was a chiropractor, and she was like, for the first time, I know where my finances are, and I don't spend hours doing it. I just fill out my scorecard and I move on, and it's there. And then I know where I stand at any given moment each week. I don't have to wait till the end of the month when I get my P&L or whatever. So I think this whole system is meant to just be simple and streamlined. Like a fifth grader could do it. And that's kind of where we want it to be, right? Like as a teacher, I just want step by step, A plus B equals C, follow the steps, follow the guidelines, make your own decisions, empower yourself to
mm,
handle your money, but don't be obsessed with it. Don't take hours and hours. You don't have to have a meeting with your accountant every week. You don't have to, all these things that people overcomplicate because they're suddenly in business.
Mm.
So my whole goal is to provide relief for business owners and just give them these anchors of places to land. So I have, developed a free training, and I know that'll be in the show notes, but I really love to give a lot of value because I also know that maybe people don't have time to go through a course, because this year I have some big clients, right? I don't have time to be having a million clients, but I want to reach more people, and so I've created these things to become accessible, like things that I'm using for $10 million businesses. For other people can actually work in a 6K, but a six-figure business. So that way it can just be translatable, and then it helps you scale up as well. So as you're focusing on hiring your mini me and strategizing and growing, you can keep the system in place. It'll go right along with you and be very smooth. So yeah, that's my
awesome.
here. Like I've created a few, courses. I'll add more in. And I think that I just want to be of service in that way. And for me, I can do it once and record it, and it's forever. It's not like I have to keep doing it on repeat. So I just want to share it with everyone as much as I can.
Okay. So if anyone missed that, it's called the Profit Stack System. Love that. You mentioned that there is like a free offering. We're going to talk about that next. So it is a free webinar. It will be in the show notes, but it's designed specifically for female business owners who want to increase their cash flow. And I think you've shared a little bit about it, but is there more, right? We want to make sure that, that those listening to the podcast are like inspired to come and check you out. So, I mean, you've done a great job of sharing how simple it is, right? And so, and why you did it and how it's scalable. But tell us a little bit more about the webinar and like, what are people going to expect when they like jump on?
You know what? I think for me, I just kind of go through 3 different steps and pillars to look at for your business. And I think a lot of times we overcomplicate, and when we get overwhelmed, what do? We shut down, we freeze, or we run away,
Mm-hmm.
like the fight, flight, or
Absolutely.
freeze. And so, I people who hire me are usually in freeze mode. And they're just like, we're stuck. And so this webinar is really to give you kind of a bigger, almost like a 30,000 foot view of like looking at your business in a few different ways and what you need to focus on. I will tell you, the one game changer is irregular expenses, because a lot of us have these surprise pop-up expenses that are legitimate. They're not these things, they're literally legitimate, whatever it is. It could be, for us, it was putting in a playground. We had a separate playground for the younger kids, and we wanted to put it in. It's about 50K. We're like, okay, that was a stretch for us, and so we had to decide how to do that. But if you have big projects coming up, maybe you're more project based in your business. I really, really encourage people to create like an irregular spending budget. And I, have a whole bunch of different trackers and things that you can like go over your whole year, add it in and make it into a monthly bill. And you just dump it into that container, which is an account. And then as you go through, you have your list of irregular things. And as they come up, they just get pulled out of that account, and it's very painless. And I find that is one of the biggest issues with business owners is like, oh my gosh, I didn't see this coming. There's an event I have to put on. How much do we budget? What's the budget? And there is no budget, right? So I think the thing is like looking ahead a year, maybe even looking back a year to see what you actually did, make some plans, put it into a regular total. And so the calculator totals it for you. Just put it in each month and how much it's going to be. And it totals it. It adds like a little cushion, and you turn it into one of your monthly transfers to that account. So it becomes like a bill. And so this is part of what I love about human nature. Like we understand that, right? Now, if you're an accountant, you're like, what the heck are you talking about? This is crazy. Too many accounts. But honestly, it really, really works. And then you have this cushion of money besides the business savings. So we kind of go into that in the free training, like how to really hedge your bets, how to not stress about money. I believe in controlling the controllables. And this is something that people don't believe is controllable, but it really is. And you may not be 100% spot on. There's always going to be a little surprise. but you'll have cash flow to do it. And that's what I mean by cash flow. Another trick that I talk about is, a lot of us look at zero in our bank account as real zero, when really I'm like, you know what, just have 1,000 be your new zero, have 2,000. What are your surprise expenses in the past? Was it a 50K surprise? Well, then that's what needs to, your goal to become your new zero. And I think everyone's a little different with that. But those are just some of the little hacks that I talk about. And it actually goes into my book as well. Like that's a really low ticket offer that can, if you want to have it in writing, that's helpful. But I think that looking at your business as a whole and just kind of giving you these 3 pillars to focus on, by the end of the thing, you'll understand, okay, this is why I just need to clean up my books. I need to clean up my business, get it under control and move on and stop obsessing about money, whether it's too little, too much. I don't know what to do. This is a percentage-based system. So no matter if you're making $1 or 5 million, you'll know exactly what to do with every dollar. And I think that to me provides relief, and it brings peace of mind for business owners.
Absolutely, because stress is no fun. And it really, actually, when we think about that, right, when we're stressed about money, and a lot of times, especially in new businesses, you are on the stress bus a lot, right? And like you said, even you were, right, Cassie, like it's not like it doesn't happen overnight. And when we're stressed, first of all, we don't make the best decisions, right? We don't show up as our best self. It is more difficult to find that person because, you're not leading from a place of, wanting to, engage with that person or enable them or empower them, because stress means you hang on tight to the control. So when you're less stressed, you're able to show up better as a leader. And like you said, it also opens up bandwidth for that strategic thinking, for sure, because you cannot think strategically when you're under duress. No, absolutely not.
And a lot of us don't even schedule that in, right? Like we don't schedule in thinking time or wandering time, because, as the whole old adage says, like you think your best thoughts in the shower when you're literally doing nothing. I think that we don't realize that as business owners, that we need to book that in as an appointment. I do like a booking where I'm like having a mentoring time. Like, who can I mentor? Do I need to observe something? Whatever it is, book those things in your calendar, because otherwise they won't happen. It's really
and hold them sacred. Right.
Yes.
I think that's the thing, because booking the time, and I talk to my clients about this all the time. It comes up where, how do you recharge? How are you pouring back into your own cup? I know there's a lot of analogies, however you want to call it, sharpen your saw, there's so many out there. But the first thing to go is that time, right? That time to connect with yourself and your thoughts and your strategies and your dreams. And so again, when you're stressed, it's the first thing to go. So we want to get ourselves in that place, that beautiful bell curve, right? Where we're pushing ourselves, but we're not in distress. And,
and
so that's really what processes do, right? That's what systems do. And you have it all for entrepreneurs who are looking to feel less stressed. And also to, like you said, to scale, you have to have processes, right? You have to have systems in place. You don't want to be spending any bandwidth, your mental bandwidth on those things. Simple is awesome.
I love simple. It's one of my major values in life.
And I love that. I love that about you. You've used it so often in our episode today that, simple is the way to go. Don't overcomplicate things, because it does paralyze you. So it is about keeping it simple, and you have those tools to offer to people, and they do not have to recreate or figure it out themselves. And that's what I love about bringing guests like you on, Cassie, because, we approach it from so many different angles, and real life entrepreneurs who've experienced it are the way to go. And to your point again, what we see on social media, on Instagram or Facebook
and they don't know what they don't know, right? I didn't know, and I'll own that. I completely own that. But there was nobody teaching that at the time either. And I think, I'm so glad that you're a coach, because people need that guidance, and you can't see it in yourself. You just can't. And that's okay. That doesn't mean weakness. It just means a teachable moment. okay, what can I learn and then move on? Learn, set up and move on. The point is not the profit stack system. The system is to actually get you to move past this fear, this worry, this obsession, and, all the things, all the reactions, so that your brain can be used for the best possible things, and you can get more cash flow in your business, pull more money from the cash you already have.
Yeah. Which is important. Yes. So, I'm sure my listeners would love to hear about the results that you've seen others achieve that are following your system, your teachings, and applying that to their business. Can you share that with my listeners?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll start with myself first, because I'm really the guinea pig, right? Like, I was like, what am I really doing here? I don't know if this works. Let's just try it. And I to be honest too, I pulled from a lot of different things, created a new system, threw away anything that, even if it was like part of someone else's system and I found that it didn't work, I gave it a good old try. Like, that doesn't work, or it's not worth the hassle, because I'm only getting, 20% improvement. I really value a bigger improvement. So all that being said, when we started, we were paying ourselves, a decent amount, not a whole lot, definitely like, less than 10K a month. And then once we started doing this, reducing and controlling the operating budget, and then expanding other things like business savings, our profitability went from, around 25% to like over 35 and sometimes 50%, depending on the month. And, obviously there are things that come up in different seasons of a business, but we started being able to write ourselves bonus checks every quarter, $5,000, $10,000. And it's like, oh, this feels really amazing, because we were moving the money aside very strategically, every week. And so for us, since that time, obviously, we have maintained profitability every single month, with the exception of the 3 months we were closed down for COVID. And we did have business savings to rely on during that time, although we've increased the business percentage savings every month, because we're like, well, that was interesting. 3 months of shutdown, that was a lot, right? And so for us, it was a really good system to have in place. And then we've just adjust the percentages based on our feelings about it and what happened, and like, let's adjust that. And I think that's what I see, like, that's the results that I see in others that I work with, who just can't seem to find enough money in their business. If that makes sense, they're like, what is going on? This is just like a super clear step-by-step. Now move it out of the way. That's not the whole point of your business. Your point is like, get on with growing your business, reaching others, doing your mission, staying on point with all the values and not compromising, So I know that that's kind of a long answer, but those are the types of results, because decision-making changes.
Yes. I think that's huge. I think it all comes back to decision-making. It does shift your decision-making, because when you're not paying yourself or making, good financial decisions, you then, like, to your point with your consultant, is you take on clients that you really don't want to take on, or undervalue yourself. You're making really counterproductive decisions in your business because of that fear of scarcity.
Yes,
absolutely. 100%. That's the keynote that I took from that, for sure, Cassie. So with that being said, I want my listeners to know where to find you. So you have your free webinar, which we are absolutely going to include that link in the notes. Where else can my listeners find you?
My main place I love to funnel everyone, because I'm checking it daily, is my Instagram account, which is Profit Passion Academy on Instagram. So Profit Passion Academy, all one word. Just find me there. You can DM me and I will answer you every single time. It's me doing it. This is my thing. I've hired people from my brick and mortar. I want to own this for myself until I go into a different space and place. But yeah, find me on Profit Passion Academy and I'll reach out and say hello.
Love that. Love that. So I'll be sure to follow you, Cassie, because I'm just so engaged in what you do for businesses, for sure. Again, guys, be sure to check out Cassie's free webinar on her stack system. You want to be in your, working on your business, not in your business. That's one thing. And you want to be making good decisions. And when the income flow is there, that's going to open up that bandwidth to help you make those right decisions for you. right? And that's really what it's about. It's not just about your business. It's the decisions for you and your future and how that is going to allow you to show up differently, contribute differently, and it just enhances your life overall. And I think that's where the mindset around, your income comes in. And Cassie and I do two totally different things. She's an expert in her fields of building those systems and really helping you with your financial mindset. I kind of do the other stuff, right? So I think in partnership, the more I'm not saying everybody can afford like multiple coaches, but it certainly doesn't hurt to investigate those opportunities so that, you can show up and find that joy in everyday life and work at your high potential, right? So like you said, when you get it all together and then you can start to replicate yourself as a high performer, then everything starts to change. I appreciate you, Cassie, for sharing all of your wisdom with my listeners today. And I thank my listeners for joining. And I hope they're taking away some major nuggets to kind of move them to the next level, not only in their businesses, but in their life.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much, Wendy. It's been a joy and a pleasure. And I hope that everyone has something to take away as well. We want to bring value. And that's so exciting to me. It's fulfilling my mission. So thank you.
Well, thank you again. So have a great day, everyone, and peace and stay safe.
Hey, friends, be sure to subscribe to the Living Life with Wendy podcast, and you can also follow me on my other social platforms. I can be found on the World Wide Web at www.wendybowman.com, on Instagram as Coach Wendy Bowman, on Facebook at Resolve Coaching and Consulting, and finally on YouTube as Wendy Easton Bowman. I want to thank you again for joining me on Living Life with Wendy. Now go out there and live your best life.